Hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment of our Path to 2409 Star Trek Online lore series. Today we're going to be talking about volumes 13, 14, and 15. News of the race for Federation President dominated the news nets for much of the year. President Nan Bako declined to run again, stating that while she didn't feel right leaving office during the Romulan crisis, "I've been here too long. We need new blood and new ideas." The popular Bako didn't endorse his successor, throwing the field open to dozens of potential candidates. Jayed Maz of Trill was frequently mentioned by political commentators, as were Federation Councilor Sauron of Vulcan and Kevin Steiner of Terra Nova. Candidates from Bajor, Andoria, and Soria are seen as outside choices. However, Sauron and Shaversa of Andoria never became formal candidates, and Steiner abandoned his campaign 2 months before the election after his ties to the Orion Syndicate were endorsed and exposed by the Federation News Network. The remaining hopefuls engaged in a fierce campaign in which top issues were the age of the Cardassians and Romulans, the increasing conflicts with the Klingon Empire, and whether Starfleet should be expanded to respond to the increasing threats to Federation citizens. Ultimately, Anik Okeg of Soria was elected in a close vote over Jayed Maz, with Bajorian Shad Ona in the third place. Okeg, the first Saurian ever to hold the Federation presidency, began his term by offering Maz and Shad places in his cabinet. Federation President Anik Okeg's first state trip took him to Cestus III, where the Klingon Empire agreed to hold a new round of Federation-moderated talks aimed at ending the war with the Gorn. While the Federation diplomatic team, led by Alexander Roshenko, hoped for a successful ceasefire agreement that would open the door to expand the summit to deal with Klingon Federation trade and defense agreements that are set to expire in 2394, it quickly became obvious that neither the Klingons nor the Gorn were willing to budge. 3 weeks into the talks, representatives for the Klingons and Gorns were still haggling over the official agenda for negotiations, and even a personal appeal to Chancellor Martok by Federation Ambassador Worf failed to speed up the process. The Federation Council met in emergency session to debate possible incentives the Federation could offer the Gorn and Klingons, but all peace efforts collapsed on stardate 69259.56 when a Gorn and Nausicaan fleet attacked the Klingon world of Ogat. Fighting ranged around Ogat for more than 2 weeks before the Klingon defense forces pushed the Gorn and Nausicaans out of the system. The Klingons denounced the attack as dishonorable, and Martok formally pulled the Empire out of all peace negotiations. Klingon and Gorn ships attacked one another on sight, and when the USS Montana tried to intervene in one skirmish, it was heavily damaged by Klingon disruptor fire. Hardliners on the Klingon High Council, led by Jimpak, demanded even more aggressive action against the Gorn after the attack at Ogat, calling for an invasion into the Gorn hegemony. When Martok advised caution, suggesting that the fight should be kept with the Gorn out of Klingon space until a new fleet of warships could be launched, Jimpak denounced him as a weak old man hiding in his bed instead of meeting all challenges on the field of battle. Federation political analysts expected the schism on the High Council to come to a head sometime in the next 3 years, and looked with concern at the growing support of Jimpak and his hawk-like agenda. One of the major houses openly supporting Jimpak was the House of Torg, a former ally of the House of Duras. In fact, Torg's adopted heir, Gerard, was the son of Lursa, Jursa's sister, and an open foe of the Federation, who was killed attacking the USS Enterprise D in 2371. Gerard, who was on Ogat when it was attacked by the Gorn, survived the battle and entered training with the Klingon Defense Force on stardate 69637.18. On Cardassia Prime, the Detapa Council enacted a series of reform measures designed to promote population growth and economic stability. Benefits were offered to family members with more than one child, and thousands of soldiers displaced when the Cardassian military was disbanded were provided with retraining and placement into Cardassia's burgeoning civilian industries. Many former military officers ended up employed by Gul Madred in his mining facilities in the Septima system. Madred's mines were operating at such high capacity that he began exporting Kelendine and iridium through Ferengi brokers. His first major buyers were Romulans, who were desperate to rebuild ships and expand their colonies. One of Romulans' construction projects was on Rihan, a new capital city on Raytor III. The first building completed was used to house meetings of the Romulan Colonial Organizational Committee, which was formed under the direction of Admiral Terris. The committee completed some initial groundwork for a new government, but was beset by infighting and factionalization that had plagued the Romulans since the destruction of their homeworld. A group of moderates suggested that Romulans needed a single figure to focus their energies and cited a historical record of Romulan monarchs. Reminders of Denatra declaring herself empress of a breakaway state troubled some members of the committee, but Admiral Terris indicated that she would be supportive of the revival of the monarchy. However, Terris said that any move to crown a ruler must be made by the Romulan people. The rapid rise of a new chancellor for the Klingon High Council threw the Empire's relations with the Federation and other major powers into doubt. Whether you loved or hated Martok, he was a known quantity, said Starfleet spokesperson Commander Marie Durant. We simply don't know enough about Jimpak. Strained relations between the Federation and the Klingon Empire made gathering detailed information about the political situation on Kronos difficult. The task was complicated by the fact that one of Jimpak's first acts was to bar the Federation's ambassadors from the Great Hall. Ambassador Worf was a member of the House of Martok, and one of the Martok's staunchest supporters. What was known is the tensions rose between Martok and Jimpak for some time. Jimpak and his followers on the council accused Martok of being a weak leader and a puppet of Federation interests. They questioned his close ties to Worf, as well as Martok's willingness to negotiate with the Gorn. In return, Martok supporters accused Jimpak of acting dishonorably and undermining the actions of Martok and the Klingon Defense Force during a time of war. On Stardate 70437.47, during a debate over whether to send more ships to fight the Gorn, tensions rose to a boiling point. Infuriated by Jimpak's jibes and threats, Martok expelled Jimpak from the High Council and ordered his land seized and his titles revoked. The House of Jimpak would be dissolved. Martok's decree only served to further divide the council between followers of Martok and Jimpak, and both sides began preparing for war. Fighting broke out between the groups in the streets of the first city, and reports of ship crews splitting into factions began filtering back to the Klingon command. Remembering the damage caused by the Civil War after Chancellor Kempek's death, Martok told advisors that he planned to find a resolution with Jimpak that would end the conflict. On Stardate 70669.86, he ordered Jimpak to meet with him at the Great Hall. Martok then told his bodyguards, the Yin Ishtel, to guard the doors and allow no one to disturb them. 2 hours later, Jimpak opened the doors to the Klingon Council chambers and announced Martok was dead. Jimpak was now Chancellor of the Empire. Drex, the son of Martok, challenged Jimpak after his father's death, accusing him of murdering Martok in dishonorable combat. However, Drex was seen by most as callow and unworthy of taking up his father's mantle. Bavat, the Arborator of Succession, quickly rejected his claim to his father's position. Undaunted, Drex claimed the right of vengeance and challenged Jimpak to combat. Drex was severely injured in the ensuing battle, but Jimpak declined to kill him. Other challengers to Jimpak's claim quickly faded away, and his claim to the position of Chancellor was ratified by the High Council. The regime change in the Klingon Empire was a major cause for concern for the Federation, and President Okeg recalled Ambassador Worf to Earth for consultations. Ultimately, the Federation decided to take a wait-and-see approach, welcoming Jimpak and inviting him to meet the Federation at his earliest convenience. In his response, Jimpak sent word through an intermediary that while he appreciated Okeg's offers, affairs on the homeworld would keep him occupied for some time. Happier news for the Federation came from a formal admission of Bajor and Tama Prime as full members. The long process of acclimating the planet's economies and population to the life in the Federation began with a few bumps, although this process was eased somewhat in Bajor's case because of the close ties between Bajor and the Federation since the end of the Cardassian occupation in 2369. One notable exception of the financial conversion was Quark's Bar, Grill, Gaming House, Holosuite, Arcade, Gift Shop, and Embassy on Deep Space Nine. As a formal embassy for the Ferengi Alliance, it was business as usual at Quark's. Being the best place for free trade at the Bajor sector brought a significant increase in traffic to Quark's, and the owner was said to be in a market for a moon. In one of the first ventures as Federation citizens, the Children of Tama worked with Starfleet to open a new linguistic research facility on El Adran 4. Dathon and Picard at El Adran. Picard is his open heart, said co-director Malatha at the facility's dedication. While doing a stellar survey near 2466 p.m., the USS Stargazer A was contacted by an entity claiming to be from the Metron Consortium. If the being's claim was correct, it would be the first contact the Federation had with the Metron since 2267. The being agreed to tour the ship, meet with Captain Romo Girando, and said that while the younger races were still unready for contact, they may have made some progress. And the legal fight for civil rights for artificial life forms hit a snag over the hologram known as Moriarty. Alerted to the existence in a Starfleet computer, the Soong Foundation sued to have the program released to its custody. Attorneys for Starfleet argued that Moriarty and his companion were a security risk, and that the program's attempt to take over the USS Enterprise D in 2369 allowed Starfleet to keep in an indefinite custody to protect the public. That's just imprisonment without trial, argued Alyssa Cogley-Shaw, lead attorney for the Soong Foundation. Since when did Starfleet turn into the Obsidian Order? The Cardassians took a major step towards self-sufficiency when the Detapa Council member Natima Lang struck an agreement with Reman leader General Lorix. Lorix agreed to sell dilithium and heavy metal ores to the Cardassians, which allowed them to drastically expand their production of ships and warp drives. By the end of the year, the Cardassians were using Ferengi brokers to shell ships, including the Type 4 commercial laboratory, throughout the Alpha Quadrant. The increase in ship production led to more commercial traffic in and out of the Septima system, where Gul Madrid owned several large mining operations. Claiming that his mines were attacked by raiders, and that the Cardassian Defense Force could not adequately protect Cardassian citizens, Madrid contacted Lamet Ukan, leader of the Jem'Hadar in the Alpha Quadrant. Lamet Ukan sent troops to protect Madrid's mines over protests of the Cardassian government, which saw the presence of the Jem'Hadar as a threat. Madrid argued that hiring private security to protect his property and employees was his right as a business owner, and that if the Jem'Hadar did not break the laws or threaten Cardassian citizens, it was not the Detapa Council's concern. In Romulan space, the Romulan Colonial Organization Committee continued to work on reforming a new Romulan government. Several legislative sessions were interrupted by arguments between Admiral Taris and General Tibok about the role the Romulan military should have in the new regime. Tibok swayed a portion of the Romulan Colonial Organizational Committee with his argument that far-flung areas of the Empire, particularly the areas near Klingon space, could and should be sacrificed in the short term to strengthen the position of what were now the Romulan core worlds. But Taris countered this, that it was the duty of the Romulan fleet to keep fighting for every single world. The debate took up much of the latter part of the year for the Archok, but no decision was reached. Chancellor Jim Pak of the Klingon High Council moved to cement his position by launching negotiations with Melanie de Leon over the Ryan Syndicate into high gear. Martok was interested in the secrets she claimed to offer, but he knew that any arrangement with the Syndicate would be difficult, said Tag Mortek, a political analyst for the Teller News Service who specialized in Klingon affairs. The Emerald Empress is slippery. Melani's idea of truth can change from minute to minute. Still, Jim Pak's house is weak. He's going to need support if he wants to stay in power. Federation informants inside the Klingon Empire said that the House of Jim Pak, which was one of the smallest of the great houses, was being pursued by the House of Martok and its allies. Jim Pak's rapid rise to Chancellor improved the house's prospect, but it lacked resources and ships and lands in the Febin system to enforce their rule. The only thing keeping the House of Martok from declaring open war is Drax, said one anonymous source. Once he recovers from his wounds, it's only a matter of time. On Stardate 71283.12, Melanie Dion met Chancellor Jim Pak in person on Tajaris, Moor. After 4 days of negotiations, the two agreed to sign a non-aggression and mutual defense pact. In exchange for the Orion Syndicate's allegiance, the Klingon Empire agreed to provide them with ships and weapons. In addition, Melanie Dion further agreed to share technology and information with the Klingons in exchange for a planet in the Klingon space that the Orions could rule as a vassal state. Having access to the Syndicate Information Network could be a huge advantage for the Empire, said Tag Morlick of the Teller News Service. Klingon intelligence is good, but they're not everywhere they'd like to be as the Syndicate is. As a gift to celebrate the new alliance, Milani sent 1,500 Orion women to be servants of the great houses on Kronos. Milani herself settled into an estate on Tajaris Moor, and the remaining Orions still on the Orion homeworld made plans to emigrate by the end of 2394. The Federation Council condemned the Klingons' alliance with the Orion Syndicate as a port of criminals, and Starfleet Command vowed to continue pursuing and shutting down Syndicate operations in Federation space. There's nothing in the Khitomer Accords that say we need to stand by and let allies of the Klingons sell illegal substances, radar commercial transports, and traffic in restricted technology, said a spokesperson. In fact, reviews of Starfleet reports showed that the Syndicate traffic increased significantly after Milani Dion seized control. Milani ruthlessly purged anyone she deems untrustworthy and fused the remaining Orions into a unified organization that answers to her alone. She's dangerous, admitted Admiral Jorel Quinn on an episode of the Federation News Service program Illuminating the City of Light. Before, the Syndicate was controllable because there were multiple leaders competing for influence and power. Now Starfleet Command has to dedicate more resources to keeping them in check. In Romulan space, the Romulan Colonial Organization Committee completed its initial work to form a permanent government for the Romulan Star Empire. The Archok narrowly rejected the plan to reform the Romulan monarchy, deciding instead to organize a new Romulan Senate at Nova Roma, the new name for the capital being constructed on Raytor 3. The committee offered Admiral Teres, the hero of Zeta Pictoris, the position of Praetor, but the majority of legislative and executive power was held by the reformed Romulan Senate. The case at the heart of the fight over the legal status of artificial life forms came to a close when the Supreme Court of the Federation ruled that the Doctor is indeed a sentient being, and as such, he had the right to self-determination and the right to retain the mobile emitter brought back from the Delta Quadrant. The court went on to set standards which artificial life forms must pass to be considered sentient, and ruled that anyone that cannot do so are technological constructs and are property of their creators or owners. This is a major victory, said Alicia Cogley-Shaw of the Soong Foundation after the ruling. These are people, not replicators. We won't stop until every photonic life form has the right to choose how they want to live. When Ambassador Worf returned to Kronos, he found he was in need of a new executive aide. The ambassador's son, Alexander Roshenko, had resigned his position as diplomat for the Federation and left Kronos, sending his son Devok to stay with Worf and his family. Alex tried to live like a good Klingon, but his heart was never in it, a source told the Federation News Service. While his wife left, that was the breaking point. I think that Bien really loved belonging to the House of Martok. After the Chancellor died, she was really ready to move on. Friends of Devok's mother, Bien, had returned to her home on Hattori, and Rozhenko was on what he called a personal exploration mission. His first stop was Beorth. While there, he planned to undergo the challenge of Spirit.